China puts big conditions before America. Will Trump agree? Some decisions don't just change trade, they shift the course of history. And when the world's two biggest powers stand face to face, every word, every condition, and every countermove becomes no less than a battlefield tactic. At such a tense moment, when tariff swords were drawn and the trade war was at its peak, China took an unexpected U-turn and agreed to talk to the US. But this wasn't a sign of surrender. It came with hard-hitting conditions. China made it clear, negotiations with the Trump administration will only happen if 4 key conditions are met. And these conditions have now given the trade war a new twist, one that could shake the global market and become a true test of both nations' reputation, policies, and strength. Today, we'll dive deep into this story. But before we begin, if you are new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe so you are the first to receive updates on our latest videos. Now, let's start today's discussion. According to a Bloomberg report, China is now ready to engage in bilateral trade talks with the United States. But this willingness does not mean China is backing down. In fact, it has made it clear that these talks will happen only on its own terms. The first and most important condition: the US must adopt a respectful tone toward China. The days are gone, China says, when the US could publicly criticize Beijing and aggressively attack its policies on global platforms. Now, China is saying directly, if you want to talk, talk with respect. The second condition is even more serious: the US must ensure consistency in its trade policies. China has complained that the Trump administration frequently changes rules, sometimes increasing tariffs, sometimes issuing threats. China is no longer willing to accept this rules-on-the-run approach. The third condition: the US must give China clear assurances regarding sanctions and concerns related to Taiwan. China's position on Taiwan is extremely sensitive, as it considers the island a part of its sovereign territory. If the US continues to apply military or diplomatic pressure over Taiwan, there will be no room for negotiation. The fourth and most crucial condition: China wants the United States to appoint a chief negotiator who has Donald Trump's clear backing. Someone with the authority to draft a lasting agreement, one that both Trump and Xi Jinping can sign. In short, China is no longer interested in press conference diplomacy. It wants serious, results-driven negotiations. There's a strong reason behind this stance: America's imposition of a 245% tariff. When China slapped a 125% tariff on US goods and instructed its airlines to halt Boeing purchases, the Trump administration hit back hard. In retaliation, the US nearly doubled the tariff rates on Chinese imports. This commercial blow was so intense that its effects were felt from Wall Street to the Shanghai Stock Exchange. But here's the twist: despite the retaliation, China issued a statement saying, "We are not afraid to fight." But if the US wants dialogue, it must abandon the language of threats. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian, in a stern tone, stated that the US must conduct talks based on equality, respect, and mutual benefit. The language may sound diplomatic, but beneath it lies a deep strategic calculation. China's Ministry of Commerce spokesperson He Yongqian also sharply criticized the United States. He stated clearly that the US must engage in negotiations with China on equal footing, otherwise, the differences will never be resolved. This statement came right after the White House announced that China could face tariffs of up to 245%. Earlier, China had dismissed US threats, saying that repeatedly increasing tariffs is merely a numbers game with no real economic value. Interestingly, the Trump administration was already prepared for this situation. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt had stated some time ago that President Trump is open to a trade deal, but only if China takes the initiative. According to her, it's China that needs a deal with the US, not the other way around. Trump's stance was crystal clear. China may be big, but it wants what we have, our market, our consumers. This statement wasn't just a message to China. It was a signal to the entire world that the US is no longer engaging in classical diplomacy. Instead, this is a new strategy of trade pressure, where tariffs, rhetoric, and media warfare are the primary weapons. But will China's four conditions actually be accepted? And if they are, will that be a sign that the Trump administration has backed down? Or is it merely a strategic pause that gives the US time to prepare its next move? The answer to this question isn't simple, because this is no longer just a trade dispute. It's a battle for global influence. Trump, who prides himself on being a deal maker, is unlikely to agree to any deal that makes the US appear weak. On the other hand, for Xi Jinping, this isn't just about trade either, it's about national dignity and global stature. China has always wanted to be seen as an equal power, not as a developing country under pressure. During Trump's presidency, US behavior toward China has often been marked by sharp criticism, heavy tariffs, and overt support for Taiwan. In China's eyes, all of this falls under disrespect. And now, Beijing is telling Washington, fix your behavior first, only then can we talk business. For Trump, this situation is far from easy. Every aspect of foreign policy has now become a tool of domestic politics. If Trump strikes a deal with China without claiming a major win, his opponents are likely to paint it as a sign of weakness. But if the talks fail, it could lead to market declines, backlash from exporters, and a drop in global investor confidence. That's why both sides are treading very carefully. China wants to come to the negotiating table, but only on its own terms. Meanwhile, the US wants to set the stage for a deal that allows it to appear as the victor. In this delicate balance, both nations once again find themselves face-to-face, not with weapons, but with conditions, proposals, and diplomatic signals. The world's eyes are now fixed on Trump and Xi Jinping. Can these two leaders protect their national interests while forging a deal that not only ends the trade war but also becomes a strong step toward global stability? Or is this dialogue merely a stalling tactic before the next wave of economic confrontation? The story is far from over, but one thing is clear. The coming weeks will be decisive not only for the US and China but for the future of the entire global trading system.
If our video has taught you something new, do not forget to like and share this video so that this information can reach others as well. Your likes and shares are a source of inspiration for us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know in the comments. It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every new story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources, news from various news agencies, opinion polls and other public sources. We try to ensure that every report and summary is accurate and verified, but we are not responsible for any dispute or error. Our aim is only to provide you with accurate information.